Ready to give your week a spooky start? Hello, I'm Faith Ortega.
I'm Christine Ortega.
I'm Maureen Little.
And welcome to the Family Fright Night podcast, where we explore horror movies from the perspectives of 3 generations. Listen in for a guided discussion about one chosen horror movie each week through the eyes of me, Faith Ortega, a psychological thriller fan representing Generation Z, my mother, an avid horror movie fan, Christine Ortega, representing Generation X, and my grandmother and movie lover, Maureen Little, representing the baby boomer generation.
In each episode, your ghostly hosts will provide their personal connection to the weekly films, their likes and dislikes, fun facts, and their overall rating for the movie. At the end, the ratings will be averaged to reveal the Family Fright Night score.
Today we'll be discussing the 1973 film The Exorcist. This terrifying watch centers around a little girl named Regan, played by Linda Blair, who battles a demonic infestation of supernatural proportions. Over the course of 2 hours, viewers watch Regan's descent into a monstrous madness as her mother, Macneil, played by Ellen Burstyn, desperately attempts to cure her daughter's ailment. Are you in the market for frightened priests, showers of green vomit, deranged little girls crawling downstairs, or 360-degree head turns? Well, you're in luck. The Exorcist has it all.
We all just sat down and watched this 2-hour film together. Christine, I know you were very little when this film came out. Do you have any memories of when you first saw or heard of it?
Oh, 100%. I will never forget. The Exorcist had been out for a few years, and my mom was watching it on TV. I was supposed to be asleep in my bedroom, but I could hear the screams and the demons from the movie. I was terrified, and I wasn't even watching it. I actually had to get up and go get my mom because I was crying and she had to turn it off. It was terrifying.
And Maureen, what was it like for you? I know you were an adult at that time.
Well, I do remember I was too frightened at the time, even though I was an adult, to go see the film. I had heard so many things about it, and maybe because I am a Catholic, it just sounded so frightening to me. I didn't go see it. It took me many years later before I watched the movie.
So it seems like it's a film that really scared the both of you without even watching it, which is kind of a terrifying thing.
Yeah.
And now that you've overcome that fear, were there any specific likes or dislikes that you pulled from this watch of the film?
Well, after watching the film again, I have to say the opening scene is my favorite. That's the scene I like because I feel like it set the tone of the entire movie. I found watching in northern Iraq all the excavation going on and them finding the idol and the metal and the look on the priest's face as if he had been through something horrific. I think that set the tone definitely for the entire film.
That's so funny because that is my least favorite part of the film. I just find it so boring. And here's something interesting. When the script was originally written, it was written by the author of the book, Bill Blatty, I think is his name, and he omitted that scene. But when the director reviewed it, he's like, no, you got to put that back into the script. So that's, you won on that one. But I really don't like that scene.
That was my favorite for sure.
That's hilarious. So you guys are kind of split on that. I would say that scene is essential, and its essential role to what my like was for the film was that it does a great job of building up. So we start out with that opening scene. We first see the statue of the demon Pazuzu, and we kind of get that feeling of dread. And when we go to the actual possession, it's a very slow build-up. We see Regan playing with the Ouija board, and then there's some noises in the attic. And all of a sudden, you're more than halfway through the film before the head turning starts, and her voice changes, and she's levitating off the ground. So I think this film does a really great job of building up and giving you that slow burn. But I would say one of my dislikes is that there's too many characters. You've got 3 main characters, I would argue, which is Regan, her mom, and Father Karras, that ends up helping them through the exorcism. But then there's so many side characters. There's Father Marin, who also helps with the exorcism and finds that statue in the beginning of the movie. Father Dyer, who's a friend of Father Karras. Then they throw in this guy named Burke, who's a director. He dies somewhere in the middle of the film. And then a detective. They throw him in like 3/4 of the way through, and he's actually in the very ending scene. Just for me, there was too many characters, too much to focus on, and it did get a bit complicated. So something that also ties in with what I'd like to speak about is if we could pick one line or scene from the movie as our favorite. I mean, if I were going first, my favorite scene of the whole film is when Regan comes downstairs and there's a dinner party going on, and she kind of stands there very silently, and all of a sudden she loses control and she starts peeing on herself, and she says the line, "You're gonna die up there," as she stares at the crowd of people, which obviously is foreshadowing because the director that falls down the staircase later in the movie is in that crowd, but it's also foreshadowing for Father Karras as well. So I think that's just a very well put together moment and deeply unsettling. Maureen, how about you? What was a favorite scene that you had?
My favorite scene was the scene where Regan levitated. The power of the levitation, and the priests were praying over her, and the strength of the demon, it showed it all. The room was freezing cold, and it was a blue-gray, and she was levitated in the air, and she didn't come right back down when they prayed over her, and they kept praying stronger and stronger, but it showed the power of the demon and how long she stayed levitated. I thought it was very moving.
Right, and in that scene, they're repeating that line.
The power of Christ compels you!
The power of Christ compels you.
Yes.
And so it's got you, on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, and it's so powerful, Father Karras is dumbfounded, and he forgets to give the reply on the prayers.
Christine, how about you? What was a favorite or key scene or line from the movie?
I would definitely say when Father Karras takes on the demon, I think he gets a chance to redeem himself for not being there for his mother, because he feels so much guilt. And there's a scene right before that as well, where both of the priests are sitting on the staircase, and he says, why this little girl? So he feels so much compassion for her too. He redeems himself, takes on the demon. He's the hero of the film, jumps out the stairs, and we finally get to see someone fall down those famous stairs. It's the best.
Now, it's funny that you picked that scene because my next question kind of ties into that, which is if there were any fun facts you've maybe learned about through research or word of mouth. And actually in that scene where Father Karras tumbles down the staircase and dies at the bottom, and his friend, Father Dyer, who was played by William O'Malley. Well, a fun fact about that is William O'Malley, in real life, was an actual priest. He wasn't even an actor. And so the director picked this man who was a priest to be in the film. And in that specific scene, he's supposed to be crying over Father Karras. And, he's depressed because his friend just tragically died in front of him. But he couldn't actually make himself cry. So the director had to smack him across the face just to get him crying. So I thought, that was a very interesting fun fact. Christine, did you learn of any fun facts about this film when you were researching it?
Yeah, so I know that the director always talked about being very authentic with this movie and other movies that he's created. The person that played Father Karras is Jason Miller, and him and the director actually came into each other's lives by Friedkin, the director, seeing one of Jason Miller's plays. They connected, and a few weeks later, Jason Miller contacted Friedkin and said, I need to play the part of Father Karras. It's me. I can do that part. And Friedkin was like, sorry, chum, it's already taken. And Stacy Keach, this big actor at the time, was already cast in the part. He said, please, you don't understand. I actually studied in the seminary for 3 years. I really need to audition for you. So Friedkin eventually gives in, lets him audition, and is blown away by how authentic he is in that part. They fire Stacy Keach. He feels bad about it. They have to pay Stacy Keach his full salary, And I think he made the right choice in going with Jason Miller because he's amazing in that part.
So there was really a sense of wanting to be authentic in this film with having an actor that was a real priest and another actor who had studied to be a priest for a while.
Yeah.
Maureen, I know your fact kind of has to do with this actress who was doing some method acting as well.
Yes, there was this actress named Mercedes McCambridge, and before the director chose her, he had brought men actors in to hear their voices to be the demon's voice coming out of Regan, but it didn't seem to go with a little girl's voice. Even though it had to be a demon's voice, it was just too low. So he thought of this actress named Mercedes McCambridge from back in the 40s. She was a big actress, and he got in touch with her, and he said, "Do you think you could do the voice?" And she said, "I can, but I want you to know I am a recovering alcoholic, but to do this voice, I'll have to drink again, I'll have to smoke again." And this I couldn't understand. She said she'd have to swallow raw eggs. So
Ew.
she did all these things. I don't know if she had done research to see how that could make her voice sound, but he went with her. She did a great job, and she ended up getting the part, but she did bring in 2 priests to sit with her because I think she might have felt almost scared to be doing the voice of a demon. So she did do it. She went back to drinking and smoking and swallowing those eggs, which I can't imagine what that was like.
Talk about method acting, huh?
Yeah.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
That's crazy. I don't know if that's just twisted or genius in some way, but it
It's
worked out.
A little of
It
both.
did.
Because that voice in the film is just so creepy and unsettling. It's like 5 different voices at once almost. And
Even with the growling. And,
Yeah. This movie is obviously a classic. It's, I would argue, the first of its kind in the Exorcist category, possession category. But when we're thinking about from 1 to 10, if we could each rate this, I personally would say I would give it a 9.5. And that 0.5 for me, again, is just because maybe there were a bit too many characters, you know, a bit too much to take on and give the watcher to keep it all together and know who was who. It was a bit too complex. But I still think it's a great film. I think it holds up for sure. Christine, how about you?
It's a 10 out of 10. I watch this movie every few years. I think the director really captured authentic scenes. Every actor was fantastic, including the non-actors. They were amazing. And I think also because this is based on a true story. So when you're watching this, you're thinking, oh my gosh, could this happen to me? I better run downstairs and get that Ouija board out of the basement and like throw it in a fire somewhere because I can't have it in my house anymore.
And Maureen, I know initially when this came out back in the 70s, you were too scared to even watch it. So now that you have, what would you give it out of 10?
I definitely would give it a 10 out of 10. I think it was better than I ever thought in my mind it would be. The filming, a matter of fact, the director won a Golden Globe for his directing, and I really believe he did a fabulous job. I could watch it over and over again and see something new each time, so 10 out of 10.
And officially, we're going to give The Exorcist a Family Fright Night average score of 9.8 out of 10. Thank you to our listeners for embracing the paranormal as we discussed The Exorcist. Tune in next week for more Family Fright Night, and don't forget to think spooky through the ages.